Alright, તો પછી કોણ રહ્યું તો જાનાબેન દેખાય મને જાનાબેન નથી દેખાતા.
અરે છું.
ઓ છે ઓકે
I'm here, yeah.
ઓકે મારામાં 4 દેખાય છે 2 નથી દેખાતા.
પેલા we need to move around એટલે.
Oh yeah okay I can see okay
કારણ કે પેલું નીચે છે ને એટલે.
right yeah.
અને ઈલાબેન આવવાના જ કે નથી આવવાના ખબર છે કોઈને?
ઈલાબેન won't come.
આજે હજી પેલું છે ને એટલે આજે કદાચ નહીં આવે.
I see. Okay.
There is a class today.
નાના છોકરાઓ
આજે ક્લાસ છે ને એટલે નહીં
The
આવે.
grandkids are here.
I think
Kids are also here, right.
after next Monday they will be joining.
Right.
Okay.
Alright then દિનેશભાઈ પ્રાર્થના કરો તારે.
પ્રાર્થના ભગવાનની કરીએ મહાપ્રભુજીની જેને વૈકુંઠનો રસ્તો ખબર છે.
મને હું તો આ તો રાજનભાઈની ટ્રાવેલ એજન્સી છે ને હું એમ્પ્લોયી છું એટલે હું મેસેજ મોકલ્યો.
પણ ઘણીવાર employees are more important than
ના 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 ના
Anyway.
Programs are more important.
દિનેશભાઈ એમ્પ્લોયી ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ હોય તો બી તમને કે એમાં ફર્સ્ટ ક્લાસ ને અમને સેકન્ડ ક્લાસ એવું નથી મળવાનું, બધાને સરખો જ ક્લાસ મળવાનો છે.
મારો તો થર્ડ ક્લાસ છે મને ખબર.
ના ના ભાઈ બધાનો એક જ ક્લાસ છે.
એક જ ક્લાસ.
વસુદેવ વસુતંતે કૌસચાણુર્મમ દેવકી પરમાનંદમ કૃષ્ણં વંદે જગદ્ગુરુ.
Yeah, so I think what we'll do is we'll just go quickly from the first slide onwards because we wanted to cover few of the previous slides also and we did mid last week. So I'll just kind of quickly go through the issue of so far what we have talked and then we'll go forward.
Okay.
All right. So what is the concept of Brahman and what is Vigyan Vedanta? Vigyan Vedanta is a newer term. There was a term called Neo-Vedanta, which was Paul Hecker in like 100 years ago coined this word and somehow it got a negative connotation. Neo-Vedanta was Vivekananda's idea of integrating all the Vedantic school into some sort of harmonizing way to present it because some of them appear to be contradicting each other. So how do we reconcile all this diametrically opposite viewpoint? So that was his idea. And the word that was coined was Neo-Vedanta, which somehow got a negative connotation. So Aurobindo started with a term called integral Vedanta, which basically integrates the different concepts. And then RMK frequently used Vigyan Vedanta. So there is a Swami called Ayon Maharaj or Swami Medhanand. He's a scholar from Vedanta Society, had a PhD from Berkeley, and he's an academic scholar. But he's a monk in Vedanta Society. So he has started using Vigyan Vedanta as a perspective, which sort of combines together various viewpoints. So we'll talk about that, the Brahman idea, and then how does all salvation and how Vedanta can be integrated together. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide.
Did I go too far?
I think you maybe one slide you missed. I think you may.
Okay.
Okay. So Vivekananda kind of wanted initially to say something. How do Sagun Brahman and Nirgun Brahman be reconciled? You know, one without form, one with form. So he wrote something like this: Nirgun Brahman viewed through the mist of senses is perceived as Sagun Brahman. So something that is formless, when thought through the senses, appears to be the person with form. That is the idea. So essentially he was trying to say that both of them are essentially manifestation of the same thing. You know, depending upon your thought process and emotional connection to the Brahman per se. Okay, let's go. Scott Williams wrote something that I thought was nice. A learned ignorance is the end of philosophy and beginning of theology. So essentially what he's trying to say, there is a limit to what our intellectual ability can decipher. And there is something beyond which only theology will work. So that is his idea. The limits of thoughts are not to be assumed to be the limits of possibility. Just because we cannot think of anything beyond what we know doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that we do not know for sure. There may be something that we cannot understand. That is the idea, which is what RMK also often said. Okay, let's go. This is Ramakrishna himself. It is very difficult to understand that God can be a finite human being and at the same time all-pervading soul of the universe. So Brahman being Nirguna is pervading the entire universe, and Brahman being Sagun can manifest as God. That is the idea. So how can we say emphatically with our small intelligence that God cannot assume human form? Can we ever understand all the ideas with our little intellect? So he's basically making the point is that our ability to comprehend the reality, the vast reality, is somewhat limited. Okay. Can 1 seer pot hold 4 seers of milk? Seer is a unit, old unit, like a pound or whatever, a kilogram, liter or whatever. So essentially he's saying that if our mind is like 1 liter pot, how can it accommodate 4 liters of milk? That's the point he's making. The Lila belongs to the same reality to which Nitya belongs. So Nitya means something that is permanent, which is Brahman. And Lila means something that is evolving over a period of time. So he's basically saying that permanent and changing, unchanging and changing are interrelated in some way. That is the point. All right. The word sansara, by the way, sansara is a word that means something that changes constantly. So universe that we experience is something that constantly keeps on changing, and we are within that universe. That is the idea. So the central question now is absolute reality Brahman without form, which is a classical Keval Advait concept of Shankaracharya? Or is it a reality with the form, which is our theism? All Vaishnavite school will say is with the form. So that is a dichotomy. Is absolute reality a void? Buddha will say absolute reality is not only formless, but is without content. So it is completely void. And now all these views, can you reconcile them? That's the question. All right, let's move on. So Brahman, what is Brahman? It is the highest universal principle, the ultimate reality of universe. It is the material and efficient cause, formal and final cause of all that exists. Material cause and efficient cause, I think I already explained, but maybe one more time. Efficient cause is something like pot maker is the efficient cause of the pot, and the clay is the material cause of the pot. So Brahman has both consonants. Brahman manifests itself as the world from itself. So essentially it's not only material cause, but it's also efficient cause as well. So that is the idea of Vedanta in general, except Madhvacharya school. All other Vedantic schools except Madhvacharya will say the universe is the efficient, the Brahman is the efficient and material cause of all of us, collectively speaking. It is pervasive, genderless, infinite, eternal truth, and the bliss which does not change, yet it is cause of all changes. So the idea is that the changeless reality manifests itself, and how does it manifest is depending upon what Vedantic school you are looking at. Into a reality that is constantly changing. So either it is changing, it appears to be changing, like Keval Advait will say, or it is actually manifesting with the changes, but itself doesn't go through the change, which is what Vallabhacharya will say, which is called avikra parinamavad. That means one thing which is called Brahman manifests itself by changing into this universe constantly, but it never undergoes change in itself. So something like, if I want to give an example, just think about it. Milk converts to yogurt. So 100% milk becomes 100% yogurt. But imagine a scenario where milk also remains milk, but at the same time converts to yogurt as well. So obviously it is not logical in the way we see, but that is what is explained by Vallabhacharya, that it changes without going through the change itself. It's a metaphysical concept of single binding unity behind diversity of all that exists. So that one constant is constantly changing and evolving into multiple things. So when Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, those who see me in all and all in me are never lost to me, and I am never lost to them. So what he is saying is basically everything that you see is me. And if you understand that, you are never going to be lost to me. That is the point he's making. So he's saying that I am manifesting as this universe myself. Part of it is you can see, part of it is you do not. So the part that you can see is called immanent form, which is you and me and the world we experience. And the part that you do not see is called transcendental, which can be only thought but cannot be visualized or experienced by us. All right, let's move on. So definition of Brahman is Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahman. Satyam means existence, truth. Gnanam means knowledge or consciousness, the awareness or the consciousness. And Anantam means infinity. And Vallabhacharya will add Anandam as well. So bliss, and what we are saying, Satchit Ananda also is the same thing. So you can argue about what exactly is Brahman. You can argue about multiple aspects, but what it is saying is this, that it is an existence itself. Like a table exists, a chair exists. What is the common thing between all of them is existence. Existence is always there. It is manifesting as chair, a table, a furniture of any kind, you and me and everything. So existence is always there. It is a common denominator. Wood is the underlying cause which manifests, but I'm talking about like not only chair and wood, table, but all of us collectively speaking. Okay. So Brahman is an ultimate reality, eternal, fully independent, non-contingent source and ground of all things. Meister Eckhart was a mystic of Christianity in 13th century. He said something that captures this. Ground of God and ground of me are the same ground. So both of us are the reality that is underlying me as an individual and the reality that is underlying the God, whoever the God is exact same reality. So essentially we are tied by the reality. We are just manifesting as a different individual aspect of the same God. That is what he's saying, which is similar to what Vedanta will say as well. And yeah. તમારા અવાજ બંધ છે.
સોરી, તમે જે શરૂઆતની બે સ્લાઇડમાં પેલું બતાવ્યું ને, નામ તો ભૂલી ગયો, દ્વૈત કે દ્વૈત શું હતું, એકમાં એવું માને છે કે God has a form, right? He's also a person as well as the Brahman,
right?
Other one, right? So how that affects here on this philosophy?
Yeah, well, Keval Advait will say Nirgun Brahman is the ultimate reality.
Nirgun Brahman, yeah, Nirgun Brahman. That's
Nirgun Brahman is the ultimate reality from which the God, the Ishvara has emanated, and also we have emanated from the same ultimate reality. The difference between God and you and I is that he is not controlled by the Maya. And we are.
I see.
That is what that is how it will be present. So just think about it. Think about like a Jwalamukhi hoy.
Uh-huh.
So big spark that comes out of it is God, and the small spark that comes out is you and me. So the ground is the Jwalamukhi, but the
But that
spark,
too-
the largest spark is God. Think about that.
Okay.
So Brahman is both immanently present in the realm of materiality and simultaneously transcendental in all things, original things. So essentially, that concept in Western classification is called panentheism. That means God manifests itself as this universe, but is beyond the universe as well. So that is part of it that we can visualize in this universe, but not all of it. That is called panentheism. The idea of pantheism is that God is this universe itself. The nature and you and me are God. There is nothing beyond that. But panentheism is, there is something beyond it. So when Lord Krishna says to Arjuna that I wear this universe as a necklace on me, so what he's trying to say is that what you are seeing is this necklace, but I exist beyond. That
Beyond.
is part of me that I'm wearing the necklace.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, now this is a classical definition in Kina Upanishad, which is very nicely done. What he's trying to say is consciousness is God. The consciousness is the light that lights up our brain, our mind, and makes us think, makes us see, makes us hear, and all those things. So what he is saying is this, and I'm going to read few lines so at least you get an idea. That which cannot be thought by the mind, but by which mind thinks is God. So mind cannot see the God, but mind cannot think without the God. So God is a consciousness, the God in the form, not with the form, the formless reality. So
Make sure I understood. Mind cannot see the God, but mind can think of God. Is that what you said?
No. Mind cannot comprehend the God,
Okay.
but by which mind comprehends everything. So there is a limitation, that mind is a reflection of the total consciousness. So what you are doing is basically capturing the reflection of the consciousness in your mind, which is limited.
You're right.
So the whole thing is never captured by the mind.
Okay.
So
Got it.
mind cannot think without the consciousness in general. That is the
Right.
idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Next line
Now-
says something like this. That which cannot be expressed by speech. So that means God is described in Vedanta as neti neti. Not this, not this. So everything that you can describe, things you can describe are like this. I can describe Radhibhai as a man, as a human being, as a species of animal kingdom, those kind of things related to Asmita Ben, etc. So a person can be described by the species, by genetics, by relationship, and whatever you think of, different ways. But
Right.
Brahman is not something that can be described by that, because Brahman is the only one. It has no relationship with anything else. And it is not connected in the way we are connected with each other.
Got
So,
it. Now,
speech cannot describe it, but without which speech cannot be expressed. So we cannot use our speech without that consciousness. That is an idea. Now, similar idea also exists in Christian literature too, called aliphatic and apophatic. So God can be described. Sagun Brahman will be something that has all the great characteristics of God. Aishwarya and Virya and splendor and all those things. So one way to describe Sagun Brahman is that everything that is great is in God. The person that God you think it is, man or woman, whatever. And Nirgun Brahman is something that has none of this, because none of the relationships
Got it.
can be worked with the Nirgun Brahman aspect. So God without the form is described as niti, niti, not this, not this. So everything that you can see is not that.
Mhm.
If you think in terms of God with form, it will mean with great characteristics that you can imagine a person to have. So all the great characteristics are sort of confined to Sagun Brahman or Ishwar or Bhagwan, whoever you think it is.
Okay.
So it says last line, I mean, I'll just read a couple of more lines. That which cannot be seen by the eye, but by which eyes see. So think about it. I cannot see, my eyes cannot see myself unless I go to the mirror, obviously. Same way, the consciousness that is induced by the organs that are induced by the consciousness cannot go back and see what caused it. Just think about it. If you have a flashlight and you turn it on and you want to see what makes flashlight work, and you take out the cells, it won't work because the cells is the one that makes the flashlight work. So God is like that consciousness which lights up the mind and brain or intelligence to do all those things that we do in day in, day out. So all the here, I mean, it goes on breathing and hearing and seeing and speaking. So basically what he's saying, and the last line says something like this: know that to be God, not what people worship here. Here means in temples. You know, I mean, it's what you are worshipping is the image of that consciousness. It is not the consciousness per se. It is just our imagination of what the consciousness may look like. So what he's trying to say is that God is not something that you can think of, can describe, can talk about, can see, can hear, but all those things will not happen if he wasn't there.
So, in other words, the God or Brahman is consciousness or consciousness.
Precisely.
Okay.
It is the original consciousness which lights up everything in the world.
Okay, got it. Now I understand. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on. Janaben, stop me if you have a question.
Dinesh Bhai has a question.
Dinesh Bhai, I mean, I cannot see you, so you may have to speak up.
Okay. I understand where you're going with this Vedantic philosophy and trying to explain the Vedantic philosophy. But at some point are we going to get to the Vaishnavite? Because
Yes.
you know, I mean, we've been talking about Vedantic and consciousness and Nirgun Brahman and Sagun Brahman. All that is fine. I mean, but when it comes to, at least some of us would want to know, what is my dharam? What is Vedantic?
Right.
I mean, what is Vaishnavite?
Right. Well, I think that, yeah, I mean, I agree. And I actually have already prepared a few dozen slides on Vaishnavism as well. You know, but since we had started with this, I wanted to finish this and then move on to that one.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So God and Brahman, Prakriti, I think we already have covered this. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. So 4 Mahavakyas in Upanishads, which are being interpreted by different Vedantic schools somewhat differently. Tattvamasi is the most frequently cited, and Aham Brahmasmi are the two most commonly cited sentences in the entire Vedantic literature. And Aham Brahmasmi is I am Brahman. Then this Atman is Brahman, consciousness is Brahman, and you are that. So sort of think through it is that there is a consciousness called Brahman, and this Atman is the same as Brahman, and I am that. That means I am Atman. So that's why I am Brahman. That is the idea. All right, let's move on. I think we covered the wave and ocean. You know, that wave is a part of the ocean. So if you think in terms of form, it's a wave. If you think in terms of content, it is water. So A wave and B wave and C wave are essentially same, except the form. The content is same, So from the point of view of ocean, it is same water. From the point of view of wave, I am smaller wave and I am a bigger wave. So that's the difference. So the context is different. All right. I think I already covered this. Sagun Brahman and Nirgun Brahman are, what are the forms of Sagun Brahman? We talk about Vishnu and Shiva and Kali and Ganesha. All of them are sort of imagination in the form of Sagun Brahman or Ishvara. All right, let's move on.
So could we consider Jesus and Muhammad as also Sagun Brahman?
From the point of view of Hinduism, yes. If you ask them, the answer is no.
Right.
But yeah, from the broader view of Hinduism, yes. Vivekananda will say Buddha and Jesus Christ are the wave in the ocean of infinity, just like Krishna and Rama were.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So concept of God, I think I covered that also. Nirgun Brahman and Sagun Brahman. So basically you are looking at the form, whichever form you want to see.
So people who follow Nirgun Brahman, what they worship too, right? There is no shape, nothing without any attribute. So what they put?
Well, I mean, like if you go to Chinmaya Mission, you know, they will have the idols and everything, but they will emphasize the point is that this is just an entry point. But reality is without form. So if it makes you connected to a form entity with a form, this is what it is. But you don't necessarily need that per se. You can meditate on totally
Blank
formless
wall.
reality.
On blank wall, looking at blank wall.
Absolutely right.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
જૈનમાં પણ એવી રીતનું છે ને વિધાઉટ મૂર્તિ
Well,
પૂજા.
I mean, Jainism has a different aspect. The God doesn't come down. There is no concept of avatar. That there is no higher God that moves down to the earth, to us. It is ascent of divinity. So Mahavir became a God-like or Kaivalya state from you and me. So he was like me and you who acquired the ultimate Kaivalya, but he wasn't God per se. And second part, Mahavir also, if we pray to Mahavir as God, he doesn't have the concept of grace. He cannot take you across the ocean. That's the idea.
I think, Rajan,
Yeah.
what Naina છે ને, એટલે જૈનિઝમમાં એક બીજો એવો પંથ છે, એ એવું માને છે કે ફોર્મની જરૂર નથી એમ.
Right.
So now what they do, just like you said, કે કંઈક મૂકવું જોઈએ, એટલે એ લોકો નવકાર મંત્ર મૂકે છે, just title of નવકાર મંત્ર, but they don't believe in Mahavirની મૂર્તિ કે કોઈની મૂર્તિ. I think that's what she is referring to.
Yeah, I mean, that is fine. I mean, so basically, I think ultimately it comes down to which form or without form, which way
Exactly.
you can connect it to the ultimate reality.
Right.
It doesn't matter which way.
Yeah.
So Vijnana Vedanta reconciliation is, we already covered this, so let's move on. Okay, so Brahman, I think some of the examples I already used it, but I'll just quickly go through. Think about Nirgun Brahman is the presidency and Sagun Brahman is the president. The power of presidency are permanent. The power of a president are constantly evolving from person to person to person. But the powers of presidency per se is permanent. So Nirgun Brahman is presidency and Sagun Brahman is president. That can change. And example of Mount Rushmore, I've used it a couple of times too. The mountain has two sides, with the faces, without the face. So same mountain viewed from different sides will be viewed as in a different way. So Brahman is think about like a mountain that you can see from the top of the mountain with both sides. If you're on one side, you will only see it face. If you're on the other side, you will see without the face. All right. And there's another concept called Mobius formation. I think this picture is already there. So you already described. Mobius formation is something like this. If you have a piece of paper with two different colors or multiple colors, and you keep on twisting it, and just think about that paper has big and wide and tall and long. So depending upon where you are viewing, you will see X color or Y color or colorless. But think about that whole paper, and I think I have a picture somewhere along the line. You know, think about this, that ultimate reality is so many forms, so it's so multidimensional, we can only visualize a part of reality, but not the whole reality. So even the ones who have seen the experience the ultimate reality will not have experienced the entire reality per se. And that is why Jainism, Buddhism will say one thing, Jainism will say other thing, one school of Vedanta will say one thing, other school of Vedanta will say other thing. Because none of them have seen the entire reality per se. Think about it, if mountain was one with one peak, everybody will reach that peak. But think about mountain is a range. So each one reaches a peak of a different mountain range. So each one experiences the reality from that angle only, but not the entire angle, the entire reality.
But Rajan Bhai, that is because of our inability to visualize the entire picture. It is like the example you gave of paper. It's our inability to view that entire picture with 200 different colors. We only can see the color that is folded and that's in front of our eyes.
That's right. Right. That's right. Even the one who is enlightened may or may not be able to see everything.
Yes.
That's the point. Yeah. All right. Let's go forward. So this is that Mobius formation. There is another picture. But depending upon what side you are looking, just think about one side as a color, different shade, and the other side as a different shade. So you're only able to see, but this one you can see whole thing. But just think about, you can only see part of it. So depending upon what you are seeing, you will imagine that reality to be what it is. All right, let's move on. Okay, now this is another example that is being explained by what is Nirgun Brahman. Just think about Nirgun Brahman is hydrogen and oxygen molecule. And Sagun Brahman is water, ice, or vapor. So Nirgun Brahman, the ice, water, and the vapor cannot exist if there was no hydrogen and oxygen. Essentially, that is the point. So water manifested as a molecule is Nirgun Brahman. Water manifested as water or ice is Sagun Brahman. And some Arvind Sharma wrote something, I liked it, this one. Understanding experience of a splash of water. Nirgun Brahman splashing your face is the experience of Sagun Brahman. So just think about this. If hydrogen and oxygen were mixed together and splashed on you, what you are experiencing is hydrogen and oxygen in the form of water. So when you have a bhakti, the high that you reach is the splash of Nirgun Brahman in the form of a Sagun Brahman. That is the point. All right. So this is the same example I'm using, ice, water, and steam. So Nirgun Brahman, H2 and H2O manifesting in this form is depending upon which view you take. So if you think in terms of Buddha, Buddha will view Brahman as a vapor. Theistic school will view that as ice or the water. And Nirgun Brahman, the Keval Advait school will view it as a hydrogen and oxygen. But it's the same thing. All right, let's move on. Okay, this is Elliot Deutsch, who was one of the Advait scholar of Western, Western academician. He wrote something, Nirgun Brahman is a state of being in which all dualistic distinction between one's own soul and Brahman is obliterated, and we are basically that there is no more distinction left between you and me and God per se. Sagun Brahman is where the distinctions are harmonized after the duality of one's own soul and Brahman has been accepted. So Bhakti school will say is that all we do is we harmonize me and God in a manner so we come close together. That's the point. All right. Okay. Yeah, so concept of Parabrahman. Now, Vaishnava school will think about, remember I told you that Vaishnava school in general will say, Gnana makes you understand that you are not body, mind, intelligent complex, but you are Atman. But in order for the Atman to realize the Brahman, you need bhakti. And to realize the Godhead per se, Krishna or Vishnu, primarily Vishnu, Krishna in our Vaishnava school,